The Human Loop podcast, powered by Ethereum. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Human Loop podcast. Our show exists for one reason, and that's about decoding the systems behind human performance and exploring how AI is shaping the way modern leaders operate. With that in mind, I've got a modern leader on the show today. And a friend, Charlie, we've known each other for a while. Charlie Voller Barnes, it's lovely to have you on the Human Loop. Can you share with everyone who you are, what you care about, and what you do for a living?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here. Nice to see you. It has been quite a while. So I'm Charlie Voller Barnes. I'm a product manager by background, largely in the B2B space. So what I love, what excites me, is building products, platforms that make a difference to organizations and ultimately the users or the customers, or whether that's internal individuals. So how do we make a difference through technology?
Yeah. And I've had the benefit of working with you on like a couple of sides of that. So I've had the benefit of being in an organization where we purchased a SaaS product, I guess, a SaaS product. Yes, a SaaS product. And I got to work with you on the product side and helping us bespoke it. And I was that really annoying customer who didn't really understand products at the time. I'm learning now, and was basically saying, can we just change it completely? And that sounds really easy. But I think one of the benefits we've got, Charlie, of having you on the podcast is I've just finished recording another version of the Weekly Loop, which is a summary episode where I pick some of the key stats and data that's coming out around human transformation, AI, the future of work type stuff. And one of the key things that I was really interested in is there was a report that said that 88% of US businesses are saying that they are now using AI within their organizations, 88%. However, only 5% are reporting that is actually trickling down through the business to the bottom line. So question for you, as someone who's been into the B2B product, helping people with product space, why are we still getting it wrong?
I think there's two parts to this. You mentioned in your first episode of Human Loop about how lots of leaders believe they are using AI tools and technology, but they don't feel like it's trickling through the business and that the individuals in their teams are using them. I'd actually argue they're probably just not aware of what is being used. I think there's a whole challenge around ghost IT, which is another conversation. But your point here about 88% of organisations using or playing with AI or other tools, and only 5% seeing a difference. I think there's another two parts to that. So, do they understand what was the outcome, the objective, the goal that they wanted to achieve in the first place? So was there a reason that they selected this piece of technology or this approach? Otherwise you can't measure it. But then even if they have got that goal in mind and they do know what they're measuring, sometimes these things have got quite a long tail. So if it's something like, I want to increase revenue, that's ultimately every business's goal, and there'll be lots of different approaches that they can take to achieve that. But what are the indicators along the way that are helping them to see if they are actually moving in the right direction? And this is a bit of an age-old challenge. I think McKinsey and Gartner chuck out the statistic fairly often about how many or the percentage of transformation projects that fail. And it's a horrible statistic, 70 to like 85%, depending on which one you report. But what does that failure mean? What were they looking to achieve? Did they actually have clarity on what that was so that they can measure what that means? And are they really in a position to be able to measure it yet, or do they need to think about their success metrics and how their KPIs, how they're measuring everything at a different level? So if it's that they're going to expand revenue and they're going to do that by moving into a new geographical market, for example, they might not be seeing those financial returns yet. But if they were to look at the beginning of the funnel, so their SDR team, how many leads are they getting in this new market that they want to move into, or what's their conversion to those conversations or acquisition on their product, then they might find that actually those statistics look a bit different.
Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to dig into there. Thank you. The world, like the word transformation, I guess we're talking about changing stuff, aren't we? People, processes, technology, we're changing stuff. And as you said, when you said like ghost IT, ghost tech, which I guess with that, you mean technology, like tech platforms that employees are using without anyone really knowing.
Yes.
Okay, which never happens. No one is ever throwing their business plan into ChatGPT and asking them to create their they're not doing that. But
it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. But let's say hypothetically, the way that I think there's some really interesting behavioral science around the way people change and transform. And I wonder, you say the Gartner McKinsey stats around 70 to like 85% of transformations fail. I think it's really interesting. You started with actually like what does success look like from the start? I think that's really interesting. Like let's tinker with some AI, throw it into our sales funnel or our marketing or our finance, etc. And that's expensive because it's an investment, and then not really understanding why that might not be coming out in the wash because it's maybe you've put it right in the middle of a funnel or a process, and actually just doesn't fit because we haven't reworked the whole process. So I think that's really interesting. Then coming back to how people change, I guess the world is changing. The world of work, the world full stop, the world of work is changing so fast that I'd be really interested to explore with you, like why do transformations fail when they involve people so often? Because I guess when we look at the interface of humans and AI and the opportunity for tools that are multiplied through the use of AI, where the use cases are really good, they're still failing. So in your experience, the ones that haven't failed, like what do those business leaders do really well that the ones that do fail so often don't?
Yeah. So just touching on one thing that you mentioned, you asked why do transformations when people are involved, or why are there challenges with those? Every transformation involves people. You can't have technology without people. Either that's the people to decide on what's the outcome that we want, so that's success metric again. Which one are we going to use? The people that implement it, but then also the people that are going to use it or that are going to use the results of it. So there's people at every part of the process, which is really important. Just remind me of your question again. Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, I like that. And you managed for me to plug the podcast. It's almost like the humans in the loop, isn't it?
Humans are always in the loop.
Humans are always in the loop.
They always should be in the loop. And so actually, let's come back to the question around transformation. So why do some organizations have challenge with it? Why do some succeed? Clarity on that goal is really, really important. And not just because then you know what to measure and how to know if you've succeeded or not, but also to take people along on the journey. That's a bit of a cliche phrase. You and I have a mutual contact who hates that phrase, if you remember.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nick, but taking people on the journey. But it's really important. People need to understand the destination. But it isn't just about the destination. There's two parts to transfer. Well, there's more than two parts to transformation, but I often think of it in a really simplistic way. There'll be lots of eye rolling about that. How can transformation be simple if everyone fails at it? But you need to understand where you want to get to, but you really crucially also need to understand where you are now. That's to understand your technology landscape. So, what do you need to do to get to end goal? But also, where are your people now? You mentioned people and process and ways of working. That's critical in transformation. It isn't just about popping a bit of technology in or popping a bit of AI in, which over the last few years has been really fun, talking to organizations saying, oh, I want AI, I want something shiny. But as a product manager, I'm like, but why? What do you want to do with it? Don't just throw a load of money, at something. Sometimes biggest transformation can come from that kind of hearts and minds mission, or the ways of working, or tweaking a process along the way. And oftentimes these things are critical in terms of that technology journey. But you need to understand people's appetite. What's important to them. What the individuals that are going to be part of this this end utopia. What's important to them. What do they need to do day to day? So you get their buy-in, but you also understand what it is they specifically do. So if we pull the ghost IT piece in, oftentimes a leader will have this big goal, fabulous. Maybe they're really great at articulating that, and everyone's really excited about it, and they're, wow, this is brilliant. This is going to be amazing. But then they miss that piece about, well, where are we now, and how do we do things now? I've spent a lot of time working with organisations to help embed technology, but also look at what are your processes, what do your people do, not just what they should do, but what do they do, because that will impact your route from current to destination. You need to understand, what's the route you're going to take. But then critically within these two simplistic pieces is you need to check in as you go along. When you set your outcome, your goal, you're effectively, you're putting a bet on a hypothesis. So what do we think is going to allow us to achieve that goal? Right, that's the thing we're going to do. But a hypothesis is a guess, it's a bet. So you can set your goal, throw loads of people and money at it, and then get there in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, however long, and say, right, okay, let's have a look. It should have won now. Let's all celebrate. Chances are it's not going to have worked. Things change. You said about how quickly work is changing, how quickly people are changing, and particularly at the moment. So you have to check in as you go along. Are those bets that you've made, those guesses, those hypotheses, are they actually moving the needle? So if we come back to what I mentioned earlier, your end goal might be about that big revenue target, but what are those leading indicators earlier on in the process? Those are the things that tell you if you're going in the right direction. But as leaders as well, we really need to check in with the people, the individuals that are on the ground, and make sure that they are getting the results that they're expected to get, that they are on board with it. I've heard the phrase change fatigue a lot the last kind of year or so. And I love change. I sort of lean into it. I'm like, what can we do differently? How can we, even if something's working, how can we break it and try and be a bit more, I shouldn't say break it, but how can we be more efficient or do things in a different way? But that can be really scary to people, either because things are moving too fast and they're a bit scared of getting it wrong. They were in a safe space, they knew what to do. Or the feeling at the minute that, well, all this technology and change is coming in, and well, then what do I do? Am I still needed here? Humans always need to be in the loop. So I think you and I would say, yes, we still need you, but how can we allow you or enable you, empower you to do your work in a more efficient way, or a way that is going to achieve more, increase productivity, etc. So I possibly made that very simple equation quite wordy, but goal, current, what are our steps along the way, and how are we going to check in with it along the way?
Nice. I like all of that. I'm a very simplistic person as well. Take that as you want to. But I think what is like fundamentally, I think so for me, what do I take away from that? I take away two key messages for me personally. One is you have to understand your objective, but then almost have like stage gate, like micro objectives. So like these experiments, if we've got to have a hypothesis, I would much prefer in any organization that I've worked with, and they're like, we're going to change the way we do one-to-ones. I'm like, great. Who should we start with? Small.
Yes.
Like, who should we start with? Like, and actually then it's about who are the easiest people to sell the benefit to them to. So I think a lot of organizations are like, great, AI, we're going to give you Copilot licenses, and we're going to select these people. Microsoft Copilot licenses, other, LLMs are available. We're going to select these key people because that we think that them using it has the most strategic value within our organization. All right. Problem is, A, do they want to? B, are they going to? And C, how much of a change cheerleader are they going to be? Or an early warning system are they going to be to you when actually it's a bit crap? Copilot might be good. I'm not sure it is. But anyway,
It's all in the use cases. It's in the goal. What do you want to achieve? Is it
yeah,
the right tool? And I think that's a really good example, because it's something that's really accessible to organizations. We'll just chuck Copilot in. But why? What is it you want
yeah,
to do? And also, that could seem really overwhelming to people. The other thing that organizations just do not do enough is train as they go, and pick the pilot, the small group of people that you say are either going to be your warning sign or your first followers you often talk about. That's really important. But give them a particular use case as well. Otherwise, it's like, well, this could just do everything, or it could do nothing. So you need to be a bit smart with those bets.
yeah, completely. And I think look, that we still have human organizations with teams and pods and different functional areas. And actually, really, they're still tribal. Even if we're disparately spaced across the world, across time zones, across cultures, we still have culture. Whether you like it or not, your business and your business units have cultures and subcultures, because that's what happens when people communicate and collaborate, even virtually. And so what's really important, I guess, is, well, not I guess, I hypothesize, and I know from experience, is that we've got to find those first followers, those change cheerleaders, or those people who will say, hang on a minute, Charlie, this pilot isn't working because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to flag it to you early, rather than wait for you to get 6 months down the line.
Exactly that. We have to listen to that. Oftentimes, leaders also don't want to hear that. But I've spent all this money and I've got this goal and I've got to hit it, and I've got to hit it by a particular deadline, which is a whole nother challenge of, I don't care about timelines, I care about results. But that's an aside. But if something isn't working, then you need to change course, and you can change course. We do live in a very agile world. Technology is largely built in a very agile way now, which means that we break it down into little pieces. We implement said bit, we test it, we check, is this working or not? Great, it is. Steam ahead, not too fast, because you might want to change again a little bit later. But if it's not, that's okay. But you have to be accepting of that failure. Yes, failure can be expensive and it can waste time and money. But if you do it in little chunks and you measure as you go along, then you're not going to speed off too fast in the wrong direction. But you have to be willing to hear that as well, not just keep ploughing on to this said wonderful destination. If actually those warning signs are here, you do have to listen to them.
Yeah, completely. So I think the messaging there is experiments are great. I think the word experiment is helpful to employees as well. Experiments, pilots, like you're part of this special group that are getting access to this early. This is what is changing. This is what isn't changing. And this is when we will review this. And then, as you said, like onboarding of how to use the new tool, the new process, support, development on an ongoing basis through that process. And also, I think a really upfront piece of communication that this product might be MVP. It might be minimum viable product right now. The opportunity here is for you as a finance team to sculpt and shape how we might use this and roll this out in different areas, for example. And I think there's a lot of maybe ego, maybe fear that I see in businesses. It's probably a bit of both. There's like, actually, like this needs to be a one and done because my job's on the line, or I'm this C-suite role, and I've put the business case together for this and I bought into it. That actually, I think there's probably some weight you can take off your shoulders by saying what we need is this amount of budget to do this, and if it doesn't go well, then we'll go a different direction. But if it does, we'll then unlock this and unlock this. And I think probably measuring smaller increments of ROI are better than going for the 33% uplift in EBIT.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And to recognizing that fear from leaders or decision makers in terms of implementing something, though, is also a really valid point, because yes, you might be putting your job on the line, or it's that, again, to your point about ego, if you're saying to your teams that I'm actually not sure about this, it's an experiment, that could feel like you're not going in with this, confidence and authority. But I think you need to explain the process. Over communicating is not a bad thing in these contexts. And yes, it takes vulnerability. It takes showing that you don't have all the answers. But again, we're all human. And technology, you might need to remind people about it. But if you're implementing something that's brand new, it's not been done before. Or even if another organisation up the road has implemented it and it's all gone beautifully, it hasn't been done in your business before. So it is an experiment. You need to be willing for things not to go perfectly well. But I get that is a bit of a nightmare when you're having to, ask for budget or put a business case together, or get the CFO to be on board with you. But the point about MVP as well, when things aren't necessarily perfect, I've definitely failed at that before. So building a data analytics platform, and we were coming up with these cool new features or modules, and we might have told the leadership teams, like our stakeholders, that this you're getting this kind of early. Big Lesson should have plastered beta all over it, didn't. But that message didn't necessarily translate to the the individuals on the ground that were using the platform. So they see something that's wrong or that's a bit clunky, and they're like, "Why have we bought this? What is this?" The messaging should have been that you've got access to this brand new tool that no one's had before, and yes, it's going to save you all this time, but just bear with us a little bit on these things. So it's also who you're communicating to and making sure that does get to where it needs to get to.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I'm just making some mental notes here for Ethereum. Blast beta all over the
Yeah,
dashboards. But it's like so we're talking here about human psychology, aren't we? We're not actually really talking about the product specifically. I guess we are. We're talking about how we sell the product and its adoption, because really we need adoption, don't we? So we need adoption. We need users to get in. We need to release the product into the wild, plastered in beta, lesson learned, and let people know that what we need from them is feedback, etc. Use it, break it, don't break it. Use it, learn from it, etc. And it's again, it comes back down to how we lead people through that process. And so I've got this just idea in my head of like leading from the front, middle, and back. And I guess in this process, there's a specific element where you probably need to do all three. So the way I speak to leaders is the first bit of leading a group or an individual is observation. So observe the situation you're in with the people in front of you, then decide the position that you need to lead from. I'm trying not to make this too much like generals sat on a horse at a hill with all their troops below them, but that's definitely leading from the back. So it's like observation. What's the best thing for me to achieve the objective with the people in front of me with this change? And if it is, I need to lead from the front. Like I've got to be the early adopter, the highest user, like etc., and communicate really, really effectively, very transparently that this is an experiment. Then great. If it's the middle, I actually need to be in the pilot, in amongst them, sharing feedback, sharing frustrations, I guess as well, with what's not working, and seeking solutions. Or it might be that you need to actually step back and delegate this to the people who are responsible for this use case of AI within your business, because actually you might be the sponsor for it, but if you just check in, actually you're depowering, I guess, the team that are trying to deliver this change.
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest challenges for leaders, is deciding for the current challenge, because as you say, it's going to change depending on where you're at in a journey or where you're at with your team or whatever, but in what position you need to stand. I was talking to a coach a little while ago, and my analogy at that point was around, this is really exciting, and I'm picturing like jumping off a cliff. That sounds really dramatic, but like into the sea, it's really exciting. Come on, like if I go first, you'll see that it's great, and I come up and I'm smiling. But that might just be really terrifying for them, and they're just stood on the edge, or not even quite at the edge, and like, okay, I've jumped, but I don't understand why you've done that yet, and I don't know how cold that water is, or you look like you're having fun. So jumping might not be the right thing for me to do as a leader in that point. But if I'm stood in the crowd on the cliff edge, and I'm trying to sort of cajole people, also saying, well, no, come on, you've got to go first, that might not seem like the right thing to do as a leader. So it's a really tricky position to be in. I'm hoping you and Etheria will come up with the answer for that, and we can follow it at the right one at the right time.
Yeah, I think thanks for the plug, by the way. The Human Loop podcast powered by Etheria. I think in look, Etheria as a concept is designed as that kind of 24/7 support mechanism for managers. I guess the validation bit, or the challenge and the solution is, you spoke to a coach. You said it, like you spoke to a coach. That coach isn't with you 24/7. Imagine if that coach can be. But then it's really, really important to understand, from a change perspective, us building Ethereum and running our pilots, it's really, really important. And we've built this into our pilot process, that there's a lot of support for people when they get those proactive coaching nudges. And Athi, our AI coach, says, Ben, the way you've just, you get a coaching nudge, says, Ben, the way you've just given feedback there has damaged Charlie's engagement by 3%. What are you going to do about it? Because actually, without the right amount of sentiment and intelligence around that, and support of how to improve that, and context, that manager might just go, well, screw you. And so it's really important to understand that whole change cycle.
Hopefully, if they're engaging with you, then they're not going to do that because they're wanting to improve. But that's another piece about us sort of self-perpetuating, or being surrounded by people that think and feel the same way as you. So you want to try and access the people that don't as well. But it's a really good point. As leaders, we again can often have that fear, if you like, of I've got to get it right. And you don't know whether you have or haven't. And sometimes that dynamic with an individual can be that you don't really get those feedback signals from them either as well. So you could come away from it thinking, absolutely nailed that, brilliant. And actually you really didn't. But again, that balance of vulnerability, I suppose, and being willing to accept that, which we should all accept, we are not the finished article, but how can we use those tools and people and expertise around us to continually get better, that incremental gain all the time. And I think the power of AI in its most simplistic form is just the multitude of information and experience that it can collate and share with you. We still have to interpret that. We still have to decide, is that right for us in this particular instance? That's probably going to change and improve as the AI continues to improve, because it will have more ability to consider context, for example, but the human is still very much in the loop and in that seat. But I guess the premise is, how can we give you as much information or tweaks or nudges or advice as possible?
Yeah, completely. And I think it's that, like, what's my part to play? Like, what is the part to play for AI in this workflow, and what is the part to play for the humans in this workflow? And that collaboration moment and that interface, and how that is only going to be enriched, I think, in the next few months, years, etc., is going to be super interesting to observe and be a part of, as we're all having to work with it, whether we like it or not. Charlie, we are coming up to 30 minutes. It has gone like that. Yes. I would love to hear from you. What do you like from a product perspective? And we talked a lot about the human side of how you implement products really successfully, which I think is what's being missed, which is why it's so great to have you on the show. if you could give a few tips to business leaders who are, implementing new products, new use cases for AI within their businesses, like what would your top tips be to give them a really good head start?
Okay. Repeating myself a little bit in terms of that clarity on the outcome, but the clarity word is really important. Many times I've gone and spoken with organisations and with their SLT or their board or whatever, and they think they're all aligned. But actually, when I go in and challenge, because I really need to understand, I'll often go in and say, you're probably going to feel like I'm asking you the same question in slightly different ways. It's because I need to make sure that I've got it from all the different angles. Very often that alignment actually isn't there. And that's something that we need to be really mindful of in terms of how we communicate with our teams as well. Let's say that you as a leadership team, you've got your goal and you're all agreed on, you're all aligned on that goal, you understand it, but how you articulate that also needs to be kind of experimented with. It needs to be played with. Do people actually understand? You talk an awful lot about the power of reflection. And how we don't it's not one and done. We don't, okay, you've learnt something, it's gone in. Actually, we need to process it. We need to go away and what did that mean for me and how have I understood it now? And I think that's really important for leaders to do. Have your own clarity, but then make sure that your organisations are clear on what that means and what the impact is going to be for them. But if we also think about that in the context of AI, we really need to make sure that the tools we are using, that they understand what our outcome and our goal is. We as humans will communicate something, and the power of these tools now, it is all being interpreted with NLP, but it doesn't always come with the same understanding or the same interpretation as we think it's going to have. So you need to be really clear on the prompts that you give to these tools as well, and clarity on that outcome. A silly kind of example, I was playing around with some vibe coding type stuff the other day, and putting quite simplistic prompts about what I wanted it to create. And what came out was, that's not what I meant at all. So I actually had to go into quite a lot of detail and set these really specific criteria and explain what I wanted it to create, what the outcome was, which made it really quite lengthy. But it got me a much better result. And actually, in terms of the credits that it took to build it as well, I got a lot more out of the tool because I was really clear on that outcome. So the goal, the outcome, but also making sure that it's really clear to the individuals and to the tool itself, or those that are implementing the tool.
Nice.
The top 10.
Nice. I really like that. So clarity is like the most important foundational bit, isn't it? And I think the bit you said there, the C-suite being aligned, but also then almost testing that clarity on, yes. Again, like small experiment, test the communication. What do you understand and get from what's just been communicated before you go out to the wider audience? Clarity with your AI tools as well. Like, yes, I'm 100% on board with that. There was a podcast I listened to a little while ago, and the host was talking about how they structure their prompts, and they use CRIT as an acronym. Context. So the context, the role for R, I is the interview, and T is the task. So the context we're in, the role I want you to play, the interview questions I want you to ask me to further clarify your understanding, and then the task I want you to perform. And I've played with that in the variety of tools that I use. And yeah, like I completely agree. The quality of the information I get back is directly, aligned to the quality of that prompt. So I think that's really important. Let's not forget the limitations of the systems we're using as well, but also understand the way that they operate, because then I guess we align the human expectations with what can be delivered through AI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charlie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Everyone, please do connect with Charlie, say hi if you want to talk product, transformation and change with her. You can reach out to her via her LinkedIn profile, which we'll put in the show notes. Charlie, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you.